So for the last year, I have been building a tool called Clinic. Clinic is simple, straightforward appointments, tasks, and messages for doctors. And that has been essentially the tagline. That has been the way I have talked about it. But over the last couple months, I have begun to figure out how to more accurately describe this software, because the problem with simple, straightforward appointments, tasks, and messages is that it hides, perhaps unnecessarily, a lot of the complexity that goes into healthcare software. I think it's important for me to strike the right balance between complexity and simplicity, or rather simplicity and the necessary complexity that especially exists with highly specialized software like that in healthcare. Now, last week I put up a LinkedIn post where I talked a little bit about this, where I said, hey, there's this promise that I've had to the market with this tool that has resonated with a fair number of people. But the thing that I did was I introduced this idea that I've been thinking about. And I don't think I'm the first person to come up with this, but this is a new way to kind of put a spin on this particular problem, or this solution, I guess you could say. And that is a purpose-built digital workspace for doctors. And I shared this image with the world. And that's where I think this tool actually needs to go. It's not just an EHR. It's not just this kind of little tool that simplicity kind of is like so simple that it kind of hides all of the complexity and almost is too simple so it doesn't actually do anything. And it's also not this like complete, comprehensive, super complex EHR like an Epic or a Cerner. It's something kind of in between. And I think a purpose-built digital workspace for doctors begins to get there. I won't say it's definitely the right way to go, but I think it's going in the right direction. And today I want to tell you a little bit about what that means and why I think that's the right way to go. I've got some updates that I want to share with you as well on the prototype that is very quickly just turning into the actual app, which is very exciting. But I also want to kind of spend a little bit of time and paint a little bit of a picture about where I think this is going to go here in the next couple of months, and where I think the biggest differentiation is going to be when it comes to building a purpose-built, this kind of digital workspace for doctors. So by my kind of best brainstorming, I guess you could say, I think there are 5 things that go into a digital workspace. And I'm going to make a video about all of these in a little bit more depth, and particularly addressing the features and the things that I'm working on with them. But today I want to focus on 2 things, these first 2 here. So the 5 things are daily workflow, practice operations, documentation, patient charts, and clinician efficiency. Not necessarily in that order. That's not necessarily the order of importance. That's just the order that I'm going to address them in for the sake of this video and the future videos. So today we're going to take a look at daily workflow and practice operations, because I think those 2 things begin to address kind of the interconnectedness of this kind of workspace, the requirements of this kind of interconnected workspace that need to be there. Let's talk first about the daily workflow and some of the updates I've made there. Now, in terms of the actual demo kind of prototype that I've been working on, there is one big space that I've made some updates to, and that is kind of this calendar as well. And one of the bigger, kind of more noticeable updates really comes into play with this kind of what I'm calling the daily workflow kind of environment, which is a calendar view that combines essentially your calendar, your day, whether or not you want it to be days, whether or not you want it to be just one day, you want it to be a week, you want it to be an agenda view, whatever you want it to be, plus a kind of tasks that are due today, maybe due in the next couple of days. This is not a new concept. This has been done by lots of different tools before this one. Lots of productivity tools do this. Amy Calendar does this. Morgan does this. I believe Cron Calendar, before they were acquired by Notion, had something like this. So this is not new. I do think it's probably somewhat new for healthcare. I don't know that I've seen a design like this in healthcare before. And this is like, very quick first stab at this idea. But one of the things that I'm thinking about here is that this is a way to surface things for a physician day to day very quickly in line with what they need to do. And basically what this is this is synchronous work, the appointments of the day, plus asynchronous work, which is things that have to be done at some point, probably in a 24-hour period surrounding the day that the physician is looking at this, but don't necessarily require them to block off a very specific time for them. In my conversations with physicians, a lot of times they'll say, we have tasks that we need to do, but they don't really have an exact due date most of the time. It's something like, this needs to be done the next couple days, it needs to be done the next week, it might need to be done the next 48 hours. That's probably the most restrictive one that I've heard. But most things generally don't have an exact due date that have to be done by. And the things that do are relatively few and far between, at least in the conversations I've had. So something like this, I think, could make a lot of sense and could be a great way to present these things to users. And you can click on it, you can get into what you were doing or what you need to do, get back to the calendar or whatever it is, and complete a task and be done. Now, this is essentially one of the bigger pieces of work that I think goes into a digital workspace. It should help you manage kind of that daily workflow, this balance and tension between synchronous and asynchronous care. I would say the biggest thing that's missing here is things like messages and inbox. That's the in-basket management is one of the bigger challenges that a lot of physicians deal with. Now, the second thing that goes into a digital workspace, and I think this is the thing that's a little bit harder to explain and visualize without actually just building it, which would take a while and definitely is worth doing, but it's going to take a while, is the practice operations. Now, practice operations in practice management software, PMS is the other name for this. Practice operations is a lot of things, is kind of a cloudy or hazy kind of combination of things between like revenue cycle, patient communication tools, intake, kind of the way that the practice wants to to operate, basically. So like, how are you going to run the administrative workflow side of actually delivering care to patients? Now, what this I think means in like actual kind of boots on the ground, nuts and bolts kind of implementation is, I think there's one very important question that this has, which is how much can a practice customize the software to fit what they need to be able to do? Now, what I think that means is, basically, how much can they make things kind of connected together? So if I select a particular type of appointment or a particular patient or a particular thing, what are the kind of cascading dependent selections that I either don't have to make or I do have to make? And I think one of the easiest ways to represent this is with templates. An appointment template could be related to a note template. An appointment template might have a particular type of a particular type of time slot it can fit in. Again, these are things that a lot of EHRs support. This is not new stuff. But in a lot of ways, a lot of these EHRs kind of fall into like three camps, really. One is they'll either let you customize it, but it requires like a consultant or a specialist. These are usually the Epics and the Cerners of the world that do this. A lot of times they will support it, but you kind of have to let them build it and kind of turn it on for your particular instance of the thing. So it's like kind of a feature request in a way. And then sometimes they might just not support it at all. And they might say, if you want to use our software, then you are going to have to change the way you do things. And I don't think, and all of those things have their places and the pros and cons, but I don't think that's the best way for me to enter the market with a new tool. To kind of put a little bit of a specific kind of workflow or kind of visual with this, let's say we had appointments, right? So when we want to customize the software, we're going to say, okay, give me types of appointments, right? So we might create a follow-up appointment. We might create an annual physical appointment type. And within those, there might be layers of kind of dependencies that someone can configure. So a follow-up appointment might only be able to be scheduled for 15, 20, or 25-minute time slots, depending on any number of things. A follow-up type might even include things like, is it a follow-up for a particular procedure? Is it a follow-up for another type of visit, whatever it might be? And then that might then have like note templates that are associated with it. And those note templates might have things like dot phrases that are pre-populated, patient details that are pre-populated. They might have a SOAP or an APSO standard already kind of filled out. Those are the things that I think when you start kind of piecing the puzzle together good kind of practice operations is going to enable the physician, or for a lot of independent physicians, it would be the physician, to configure these things very quickly. In a way, it's almost like a no-code, like, management software builder. Like, they don't have to worry. They don't have to be an expert in coding to build all this stuff. We just give them the tools to configure these interconnected dependencies within templates, and then they've got it set up, and they can name it whatever they want. They can put descriptions, they can put colors, they can basically have it represented however they want it to represent in their software, and we just give them the skeleton to fill in. Annual physical is another example on how it might be very different, where it's actually just one time slot. It might be longer, and it's only going to have one type of note template that can be associated with it. It might actually have suggested CPT codes, because annual physicals have a very specific kind of place in the insurance billing market, and so those things might actually just be already suggested inside the note. Now, also, what this means somewhat in practice is that things like when you create an appointment, and maybe we get in here, like, if I select the appointment type, which really this selection should be like at the top of the screen, then all these other things should be much faster. Start time, like the time and the date, like I should probably pick the date, and then time slots are automatically suggested. It might actually just be a visual of that calendar for that day, and I can just kind of click a slot that's 20 minutes, and then boom, it's done, instead of having to type in this duration and all that kind of stuff. Additionally, and again, I think this is all things that exist in the world right now. But if I don't have the patient in here for a new patient, then I should just be able to go and click and create that patient in line. Like, I shouldn't have to go off and create a patient somewhere else. Now, this is just one example of how this might work, but we can see this kind of, I think, applying in a lot of different places. This could apply here within the appointment view. Like, if you have a specific type of appointment, like, you can tell us what kind of information do you want to see, like which cards do you, if you, for lack of a better term, do you want to see on this view when you click on the appointment? How do you want to interact with codes and billing? Do you want to see that at all? Do you want to see vital signs first? Do you want to see like the last note? What is it that you as the physician want to see? All of that stuff is configurable. All that stuff is not super trivial, but it is relatively easy to configure based on a template type or a note type. I think the same could be saved for tasks. So like prior authorization type tasks could have automatic shortcuts or automatic things that are present in this view so that the task is easier to complete and finish. So this is where I have been spending a lot of time, honestly, in the last couple of months, is trying to figure out how do we build, or how might we build, this purpose-built workspace for doctors, and then how do I take that to market? How do I really talk about that in a way that's cohesive, which is where these 5 kind of attributes, or these kind of 5 main promises come from, that these are the things that are going to make a difference. And like I said, I'm going to be making more videos about these. If you would like to see a deep dive on the technical stuff I've been working on as well, which doesn't have a lot of like visual stuff connected to it, I'd be happy to do that. It would be pretty long, but those are the things that I think are going to begin to make more of the difference here with this software. I also know it probably seems like a lot of this stuff is half-baked, and that is very true. It's all half-baked at this point. And the reason for that is not so much because I enjoy not finishing things. It's because I'm trying to figure out, is this type of stuff possible? And then how do I represent it in the way that makes it compelling for going to market and creating a wait list, or just kind of even gauging interest from physicians that I'm already connected with? Because I think those are going to be the indicators for me of whether or not this is enough. There's enough here to have confidence that something like this can work in the market. So that's what I've been working on. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. And if you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, I'm always happy to hear that stuff. I love when people come and have ideas. This stuff is really exciting to me. So thanks for watching, and I will see you real soon.